I spoke in my last video about not seeing individuals in certain professions when I was a child, and not having that representation told me that it was nothing that I could achieve when I grew up. So if we don't have images of kings, and we don't have images of queens, and we don't have images that represent us just fully in the full spectrum and context of blackness, then we can't truly see ourselves for more than what we are in certain circumstances. Going to an HBCU, which I've revered and which I revere and have said in the past, gave me this modicum of blackness in so many different facets, where I got to see people who look like me with the intentionality of loving on me from their perspective, and also giving me this full experience of blackness where it was preparing me for a world that I would enter that didn't reflect me. So when you walk through day to day and you have all of these images that, all the cartoons that we grew up with, none of them, besides things like Seabear and Jamal, you can name on your fingers, on your hands, how many black cartoons there were, versus, or just cartoons with black people in them, to the fact that, I've said this countless times, I have to imagine that the blue character from Doug was actually black. They rather color people purple, lime green, and blue than actually put a black person in the cartoon. But Doug was very clearly a white person. So when I think about these things, I started transitioning from this in 2017. I started continually thinking about what that looks like to represent blackness where it was not represented. What would it look like to flip an image and add a black character to that image? Even back to the idea, I wonder if this makes people who are not black feel uncomfortable to see an image like this. And that was what I was thinking about people coming into my apartment. But again, why would that make you uncomfortable? What about seeing a black king makes you uncomfortable? What about seeing black people riding atop horses makes you feel uncomfortable? And we can have a discussion about that in another time. But I continue to think of ways to represent blackness and to engage in that conversation of what it looks like to continually see something through a certain lens and see yourself absent, and then flip that on its head for people who are not black and change images that they've always seen and never given a second thought to. I guess the world is pretty much through a white lens, giving themselves the opportunity to engage with blackness in those same spaces. So I have been going through this illustration series recently that I'm going to release on my revamped website soon, and just changing characters from our childhood into black characters, and then giving yourself the opportunity to say, wow, I never realized how much I loved the show, but it never truly reflected me. I couldn't quite identify with it in the way that I wanted to, and I never knew that I identified so deeply until I saw it in the way that I'm representing it now. Then I also went through, and even, I won't give too much of this away, but I'm also doing a series related to that same thing in the context of the labels that you see in your home on a regular basis. Think Mr. Clean, think the Arm & Hammer arm. All of those things are actually white people's body parts, white people's heads, white people's visage. We don't get anything else in our, just even the thought that these products were built on the backs of slavery quite often, and the money that went into building these corporations started in a certain context, and that certain context being chattel slavery and owning black people. And you have these things where you continue to get this juxtaposition, and not even a juxtaposition. It's just flat out in your face saying, stark contrast. You're going to buy these products and buy into them, and in turn, you're buying into whiteness as well. So calling a spade, it just is what it is, to quote Jay-Z. This is what it's like to flip racism on its head, literally, and show there is a space for blackness. There is a way that we want to be represented. I even represented this black king in this piece in such a simple way. And that's the thing. It doesn't take too much to just bring us to the table. All I had to do was change his skin tone, make his hair a little more textural, give him a little fullness to his lips. And it was just that easy to say, okay, you know what? This is something where I could see myself. This is an opportunity to bring another perspective in. This is another opportunity to see what things look like on the other side. And plainly, it matters. It's something that is going to continue to matter. I don't think that we need to have this performative instance of, hey, guess what? We're sitting down and we decided to release a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Put black people in these rooms so that we can be represented appropriately and fully. So I am the king, commonly referred to as Zan Truluck. This has been my masterpiece studio, and this is my piece, Representation Matters, aka Call a Spade a Spade.